The American Civil War, a conflict etched in sorrow and sacrifice, was fought on battlefields and within the walls of prisons. These prisons, often makeshift and overcrowded, became arenas of a different kind of warfare. Beyond the clash of arms, a quieter, more insidious battle raged, the fight for sustenance. This struggle was not marked by the roar of cannons or the clash of bayonets, but by the silent, desperate quest for food. For the hundreds of thousands of soldiers held captive, food became more than just a necessity. It morphed into a flickering flame of hope in the darkness of confinement. Each morsel was a reminder of life outside the prison walls, a connection to the world they had been torn from. Prisoners, both North and South, endured a daily struggle against the gnawing pangs of hunger. The scarcity of food was a shared misery, transcending the divide of blue and gray. Food, or rather the lack thereof, was a constant tormentor, a grim reminder of their captivity and the precariousness of their existence. The meager rations they received were often insufficient to sustain them, leading to widespread malnutrition and disease. The meager rations, often rotten or infested, became a source of both physical and psychological anguish. The sight of moldy bread or maggot-infested meat was enough to break the spirit of even the most resilient prisoners. Yet, even amidst the deprivation, the human spirit, in its indomitable will to survive, found ways to persevere. Prisoners would trade, barter, and even steal to supplement their meager rations. They would forage for edible plants, catch small animals, and find any means possible to stave off starvation. Prisoners devised ingenious methods to supplement their paltry rations, clinging to life with a tenacity that belied their circumstances. They would create makeshift stoves from scrap metal, cook whatever they could find, and share their meager meals with each other, fostering a sense of community and solidarity. The story of Civil War prison food is not just a tale of deprivation and suffering, it is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship. It is a story of ingenuity, of finding light in the darkest of places, and of the unbreakable bonds formed in the crucible of adversity. It is a story that deserves to be told, not to reopen old wounds, but to honor the memory of those who endured and to remind us of the enduring power of hope, even in the darkest of times. Their struggle for food was a fight for survival, a testament to their unyielding spirit, and a poignant reminder of the human capacity for hope and resilience. In the North, with its industrial might and vast agricultural resources, the plight of Confederate prisoners was often attributed to a calculated policy of neglect, if not outright cruelty. Union prison camps, while generally better supplied than their Confederate counterparts, still struggled to provide adequate sustenance for the influx of captives. The typical Union prison diet consisted of hardtack, a rock-hard biscuit made from flour and water, and salt pork, often rancid and riddled with worms. These unappetizing staples were occasionally supplemented with beans, rice, or vegetables, but variety was a luxury few prisoners enjoyed. The meager rations, while technically edible, were often insufficient to sustain grown men engaged in hard labor or languishing in cramped and unsanitary conditions. As a result, malnutrition was rampant, leaving prisoners vulnerable to disease and despair. Compounding the problem of scarcity was the deplorable state of food storage and preparation in many Union prisons. Warehouses were often infested with rats and insects, contaminating what little food was available. Cooking facilities were inadequate, leading to food being poorly prepared or left to spoil. Water, too, was a source of constant worry. Prison camps, often hastily erected and overcrowded, lacked proper sanitation. Wells were frequently contaminated with sewage, leading to outbreaks of dysentery and other waterborne illnesses. The combination of inadequate food, contaminated water, and unsanitary living conditions created a breeding ground for disease. Scurvy, a disease caused by vitamin C deficiency, was rampant, its telltale signs, fatigue, joint pain, and bleeding gums, all too common among the prisoners. Dixie's dilemma, Confederate rations, and the struggle for sustenance. If Union prisons struggled with scarcity and neglect, Confederate prisons faced a far more dire predicament: outright starvation. The South, its infrastructure shattered by war, and its ports blockaded by the Union Navy, faced chronic food shortages that affected civilians and soldiers alike. Confederate prisons, already understaffed and under-resourced, were ill-equipped to handle the influx of Union prisoners. The rations, meager at best, often dwindled to nothing as the war dragged on and the South's economic woes worsened. Cornbread, made from ground cornmeal, replaced wheat bread as the staple food. Meat, when available, was often limited to scraps of bacon or, more desperately, rats and other vermin caught within the prison walls. Places of despair: Andersonville and Elmira, prisons of sorrow, the horrors of Civil War. Prison food were perhaps most tragically illustrated at Andersonville and Elmira, two prisons that became synonymous with suffering and death. Andersonville, a sprawling open-air pen located in Georgia, held over 45,000 Union soldiers at its peak. Overcrowding, disease, and starvation were rampant. Men, weakened by hunger and dysentery, collapsed and died in the thousands. Elmira, a Union prison camp in New York, though less notorious than Andersonville, was equally grim. Confederate prisoners, exposed to the harsh winter without adequate clothing or shelter, perished from exposure and disease. These two prisons, though geographically distant, stood as stark reminders of the human cost of war and the depths of suffering endured by those caught on both sides of the conflict. Making do the ingenuity of survival. In the face of unimaginable hardship, prisoners found ways to adapt and survive. Their resilience and creativity were put to the ultimate test as they faced daily challenges that threatened their very existence. They developed ingenious methods to supplement their meager rations, foraging for edible plants, trapping rats and other small animals, and even trading with guards or local civilians for scraps of food. This resourcefulness was not just about survival, but also about maintaining a semblance of dignity and humanity in the harshest of conditions. Inside the prison walls, a thriving barter economy emerged. This makeshift economy was a testament to the prisoners' ability to create order and structure amidst chaos. Prisoners traded whatever possessions they had left, clothing, blankets, even buttons, for food or other necessities. These trades were often a matter of life and death, as a single item could mean the difference between starvation and survival. Those with skills, such as cobblers, carpenters, or barbers, found themselves in high demand, able to trade their services for extra rations. Their expertise became a valuable currency, allowing them to secure better living conditions and more food. Prisoners formed close-knit communities, sharing what little food they had and relying on each other for support. These communities were built on trust and mutual aid, providing a crucial support network in an environment where every day was a struggle for survival. These bonds of camaraderie, forged in hardship, provided a lifeline of hope and resilience in the face of despair. The friendships and alliances formed within the prison walls were not just about survival, but also about preserving their sense of identity and humanity. In the end, it was this ingenuity and solidarity that enabled many to endure the unendurable. Scars of hunger, the enduring legacy of deprivation. The inadequate food and deplorable conditions in Civil War prisons left an enduring legacy of suffering. Prisoners were often given meager rations that were barely enough to sustain life. These rations typically consisted of hardtack, a type of hard biscuit, and occasionally some salted meat or beans. The lack of fresh fruits and vegetables led to widespread malnutrition and scurvy. Many prisoners, even those who survived their ordeal, carried the physical and psychological scars of their captivity for the rest of their lives. The physical scars were often visible, such as emaciated bodies and wounds that never fully healed. But the psychological scars were just as profound, if not more so. The constant hunger, the uncertainty of survival, and the harsh treatment left deep emotional wounds. Malnutrition led to long-term health problems, including digestive issues, weakened immune systems, and increased susceptibility to disease. Many veterans found that their bodies never fully recovered from the deprivation they experienced. Digestive issues were common, as their bodies had been forced to adapt to the minimal and often poor-quality food they received. This left them vulnerable to illnesses that they might otherwise have been able to fight off. The psychological trauma of starvation and confinement manifested in nightmares, anxiety, and depression. These mental health issues were often compounded by the lack of understanding and support available at the time. Veterans struggled to reintegrate into society, haunted by the memories of their imprisonment. The trauma affected not only the veterans themselves but also their families and communities. The experience of Civil War prisons served as a stark reminder of the human cost of war and the importance of treating prisoners of war with dignity and respect. The harsh conditions and the suffering endured by the prisoners highlighted the need for humane treatment. It was a lesson that would resonate through history, influencing future conflicts and the development of international laws. It highlighted the need for international standards for the treatment of prisoners, standards that would eventually emerge in the aftermath of World War II. The Geneva Conventions, established in the mid-20th century, set forth guidelines to ensure the humane treatment of prisoners of war. These standards were a direct response to the atrocities witnessed in earlier conflicts, including the Civil War. The story of Civil War prison food is a story of suffering, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Despite the unimaginable hardships, many prisoners found ways to survive and even support each other. Their resilience is a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. They formed bonds, shared what little they had, and held on to hope. It is a story that deserves to be remembered, not to dwell on the past, but to learn from it and to strive for a future where such horrors are never repeated. By remembering the suffering and resilience of those who endured Civil War prisons, we honor their legacy and commit to building a more humane world. Their experiences serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of compassion, empathy, and the need to protect human rights in times of conflict.